Well, welcome. Today we're going to be talking some ACT prep once again. And so thank you for joining us. So today we're going to be talking about the ACT, the fastest way to get a good score. And so we talked about this a little bit last week. Again, we haven't done ACT, SAT, any of this type of stuff. But people keep asking us about it. And so we're just looking at how we can help. Obviously, it's an issue for acceptance. It's to colleges. It's an issue for those of you trying to get scholarships. And let's just call it what it is. It's just a barrier, right? For a lot of us at the university side, it's somewhat a barrier to entry. There's a little bit of a mindset at the university. If you're not going to take the trouble to take a test, you're not going to take the trouble to do well in classes, right? And if you're not going to even have go through the trouble of trying to do well enough, then you're not going to do well in classes. And whether that mindset is all totally accurate or not, I don't know. There is some legitimacy to it, but today we want to talk about is just how do we get the ACT done? How do we get everything done for the ACT without killing ourselves? As I have watched a lot of people, a lot of our customers and the things that they do through ACT and SAT both. I'm going to talk mostly about ACT, but it applies to most everything. One of the things that you recognize is you don't need a perfect score. There is this push to perfect, and there's a lot of programs out there. There's a lot of coaching going on out there that is pushing to perfect, and you can spend a lot of money doing those things. That's not what we're talking about. We're trying to talk about getting. Talking about getting to some success at level. And with that said, we are introducing a new product. That is going to help. Let's see if we got that in the chat. The 10 things you must know, the 10 types of questions you must know for ACT math. And so it's a cheap product. It's a download. It's I think it's $7, and it will help guide you through what you need to know for ACT math. It's the 10 kinds of problems. So here's the mindset around this is it's overwhelming when you're studying for these exams. It's just mind-numbing. And granted, you should have all of the stuff behind you, but some of the way you help how you think about things is to categorize them and to be able to look at a problem and say, this is the kind of problem it is. And so that's what this study sheet is. And it's a great chance to just, if you can't do the study sheet, you're not ready to do the ACT study. So where are you weak? Do you understand all these 10 things? Looking at the categories and the types of problems. And then from there, we would go into, some more detailed study on an ACT or whatever the SAT also. But again, we're going to focus on the ACT. So, all right. So let's see if I can get my screen to do what I want it to do. All right. So just so we know, the ACT dates that are coming up is the April 5th, June 14th, and July 12th. Those are the dates. So anybody in those timeframes, and obviously many people are taking it over and over, will go on into the fall. Anything sooner than that, you've already done your stuff, and hopefully, maybe the guide will help you. But I think the next one coming up is next week or something like that. We are also, though, going to be launching a live coaching thing. So this is the first time we've done this, and we're going to be live on Zoom with your students, coaching them through ACT, and it's a 4-week session. There is a link to this in the chat or in the comments, and so we'll be doing that. Or these are both set up on our products. If you go to our website at AskDrCallahan.com, you will find both of these that are there as products: the ACT 10 Things Guide, and then the 4-week coaching plan. All right. with that said, let's dive into a couple of different topics here for today, and I'm gonna just walk you through some of these things. For the first one is a lot of what we said last week, and if you get the seven, I mean, if you get the 10 things guide, it will walk you through that. Um, so some of the things that you want to let's pull this over on this other screen. I got too much stuff going on. Not all math topics are equal, so if you've been through all the math and the geometry and the algebra and you're doing all these things, the main thing is to recognize we're not doing all that. That's not all these things that you did through algebra and geometry. And whether you had noticed it or not, um, there's only a couple of major things that happened. There's linear algebra, there's quadratic equations, there's factoring, there's some very basic things that are going on, and that's what they're testing for in the ACT. Not a lot of complex stuff, and of course, there's weird problems you would have and weird things you might cover in algebra and geometry. That's not what we're doing here. So your best bet, if you are studying, is to focus on those 5 high frequency types of problems. There's 10, but there's 5 that in particular, and you just want to get the stuff that barely matters, and it's hard to tell. So what a lot of people are doing is they're using like an ACT study guide, like this beast right here, the official ACT study guide. There's lots of them. This one is official. There's a Peterson. And many of them are well done, but that's thick. It's overwhelming. If you handed this to your student, they're probably going to roll their eyes. Matter of fact, we are going to use that book in our coaching. So we're going to come straight out of the guide and we're going to talk through it, but we're going to break it up so that your student and show them how to work, how to think through some of these problems, the strategy, and just some coaching up. Where are they weak, and then they will be assigned certain things. So we're going to break it down so it's very doable. If you are having a hard time getting your son or daughter to go through this, to actually sit down and kind of need some accountability, this will be a great plan for that, because we'll break it down, give them the things to do, and help them walk through it. So, all right. So let's kind of thought through or think through some strategies here that we talked about last time. But estimating, elimination tricks. And matter of fact, I'm just going to go back to what we did. Let me get over this. I keep losing my screen. All right. Let's just get back to what we did last time, where we talked about the ACT. Let's see if I can pull this up for you. Okay, so you should see I am on the ACT website right now, and from that we will look at some examples of what I'm talking about. And so I talked about a little bit of this last week, but we'll go back over a little bit just so you can see that, because the first thing is just we're doing a get it done strategy using shortcuts and hacks. And so, and it's not memorization so much, just, applying some things, estimating answers. So if I look at set 1, I think this is where this was, when we see an average car is 27 miles per gallon, cost $4 per gallon. How much would it cost to go, 2,000 miles? And this is one of those things you can almost eliminate the first 3 answers. They just don't make sense. You just look at the size of the number, 2,000 miles. $4 a gallon, it just doesn't make sense. So it's probably one of these 400 numbers, and you can do some quick math in your head and estimate. You don't need to get an answer. You don't even need to jump to the calculator. And one of the things that people do is they jump to the calculator. And when you start putting a calculator in your hand, you waste time. And remember, there's only a certain amount of time per problem. And if you're spending your time punching in numbers, that's not what you want to do. So let's look at another example. I'm going to look at the math set 2 section. And this is problem number 11, that just to kind of give you an example. So this is actual ACT material here. Is this where I want to be? Yeah. So we can see a DVD player with list price of $100 is marked down 30%. If John gets an employee discount of 20% over the sale, how much does it cost? Now, some of this is just logic. So, but if it's $100 and it's marked down 30%, that means it's minus $30. So it's $70, right? You should just be able to, you don't need your calculator for this. This would be $70. Now, John gets a discount of 20% over that. So you've got 70. Well, 10% of 70 is 7. So 20% is 14. So it's $70 minus $14. I mean, so immediately we've scratched off these first two numbers, but just for very quick math in your head, the answer is 56. This is a classic problem where what the student's going to be tempted to do is pull out their calculator, punch in the numbers. It's not that hard of a problem. There is the problem of where do you count the 20%? People do weird things with that, but the answer should be 56. And really at this point, this should take you a very short period of time. But if you have to reach for the calculator, you've wasted some time. There's some other things. Let's go to set 4, number 11. One of the other things we talked about, and this is the kind of stuff we're going to cover with your student, is just how do you decide as you're looking at these, massive number of problems, and how do you decide which ones of these fit these possible solutions? So let's look at number 11 here. This is a great example of the x-intercept of a graph is y equal x squared. This is a quadratic equation. So what we're teaching students to do is just to, first of all, recognize this is a quadratic and you know what the shape is, right? This is a U shape. So that tells you something, but it's an x-intercept of the graph. So what they mean is, what is the x-intercept of the graph? Yeah, so what they mean is, what is y? When is the x-intercept is when y is equal to 0. So the first thing is just a definition, right? Y is equal to 0. So let's plug in x is equal to 0. This is how we do this, is x equal to 0. I could solve this. I could put it in my calculator. I could solve this equation for y equals 0. But the easier thing to do is probably just say, let's just try 0. Plug in 0. If x is 0, that means it's 4. 0 is not equal to 4. It's not that. Okay, and so I can plug in these numbers faster than I can solve the equation. And I can just use some logic. It's probably going to be one of the 2's or minus 2's. And we won't bother you with y. But so if I plug in 2, I will get the answer. But again, I'm going to get this answer very quickly. Most of the challenge there is me reading the problem and understanding what they are asking me to do. So these are the kind of things I won't go over anymore, because for mom and dad, we really probably don't care a whole lot about these details. But this is the stuff we would want to be talking about. So let's go back over here so the and obviously, what we're talking about here is just some strategy here, but kind of what we always call a weekend cram plan. A lot of students, that's what they're doing, is they're put off to the last minute. Is just learning the general kinds of problems, taking a time to practice test, reviewing their mistakes, and going back through. And a lot of students don't even want to do that, right? Because this book, even though it's big and massive, I mean, a lot of what it's got is some test, and you can just take a test and you can sit down and time yourself and go through it, and you're practicing the environment and everything of the ACT. You're getting used to, just the timing, and you can just see how you're doing. Because one great strategy to me is just go take the test. But at $60 or $80, whatever it costs, plus the time and frustration, if you do one of these practice tests and you're scoring within reason of where you need to be, then just go take the test. That would be even before you even bothered signing up with us, just do that. Of course, some students don't even want to do that, and they need the accountability, and that's where we have been asked to come in. We have a lot of parents who tell us we just cannot get our student to do anything if there's nothing to hold them accountable. So, all right, so that's the first thing. We kind of talked about all that again last week, the just kind of get it done strategy using our sheet. But there's really a couple of other things that we want to do is we want to learn to ignore. And it's really daunting on an ACT exam with all the problems in front of you, and you are seeing visually 5 to 6 problems at a time. And and even if you're trained and you know in your mind, I need to skip some of these. How do I determine which ones are hard and which ones fit what I know and which ones I can solve quickly? It's a little daunting. It's a decision matrix that you have to do on every page you look at. So part of that is knowing these advanced topics are not going to show up. And if you see them and they don't look very straightforward, just move on and ignore them. Let me show you what I mean. Just so we are showing. Let me go back to that screen again. Now I've lost both. Where was it at? It's set 5, number 9 is a great example of that, I think. So again, we are on an actual ACT exam. This is not exactly how the exam is laid out, by the way, if you haven't seen it, but these are real problems. Number 9, I think is what I was after here. Okay, so we see here in the figure below, 8 opposite banks of a small stream. And we see some angles at 45 and 60. And this is not necessarily such a hard problem, but it looks a little daunting. But it's got some trig, which this amount of trig is part of geometry. And this isn't that hard, but this is one of those just because of 2 reasons. There's a lot of words. There's a lot to take in. It's trig / geometry, which may not be my strong suit. This is probably more on the trig side, just the kind of equation this is. I would skip it, come back to it later. Because it's got stuff that is a small percentage of the test and might consume a lot of my time, and I still may not get it right. And we talked about just a minute ago, overthinking. Estimation works good. But the other thing that we see is our students will a lot of times learn a massive number of formulas, and they're trying to cram formulas. And you've seen the formula sheets. You can, and you're very limited to what you can take into the ACT. I don't think you can take in a formula sheet right now. I don't remember the SAT. But there's some basic things that you need to remember. You need to be able to calculate the distance between 2 points, the slope of a line, the quadratic equation just should be something you just know. Special triangles, 30, 60, 90, 45 triangles in the relationships between the sides. And this is all stuff that mom and dad may not care about. But my point is there's a small set of things that if you know a small set of things, like the other one is the area and circumference of a circle, pi r squared and 2 pi r. If you just know these things, you don't need to know a massive number of things. You need to be able to apply some things and have some logic about some things, but to be able to memorize a high degree of problems or a high degree of equations, then that just gives you more to do, and it clutters your mind, because then what you're thinking of, what is equation do I use here? And if that's where you are, you probably are you're burning time. This is this just gives us an opportunity in studying to ignore. But what we want to do is ignore wisely, and we want to be able to look at some problems and make decisions. And you can make decisions on problems based upon the amount of words there are, about what kind of answers look like in the numbers, and you just want to look at that page and say, let's start here, let's wait on that, let's do this one, let's do this one, and just go through it in a systematic form. Okay, so then let's see where we are here. Let's see if I got everything. Okay. So those are some of the hints. And again, what we're going to be doing when we go live with your students is we are going to be actually walking with them and showing them how to do these things. We're going to show them some live problems, a live problem set. Boom, here's the page in front of you. How do you think about it? How do you process it? What do you do? We're not going to be trying to teach all the math, but we're going to try to be in 4 weeks. What we're going to try to do is use what they have, use the math they already have, and they got more than they know they do. But to be able to pull it out and help them reason logically to get to something they can answer and get a reasonable answer. All right, so here's what we want you as parents to do is you are thinking through the ACT, maybe the SAT too, but and you're banging your head against the wall trying to get your student to study. Is first of all, get the $7 download. It shows you the 10 different types of problems. Now, this is just the math section, but lets you look at this and go over it with them. And that's a small bite-sized thing. Let them go sit down and do that and see it because it's a small chunk. It doesn't look daunting, and just see where they are. Right, you can see where they're strong and where they're weak in there. It's an instant download. You can get that and go through it, but it does help categorize the problems, and you can immediately know, okay, they understand these things, not so much. And that's helpful even if you're coming into the live coaching sessions, that we can know where we are. What we'll probably do is, do some diagnostic, very quick things just to help everybody see where they are. So then we're going to do that. What we do have is this live coaching. We don't have a exact start date, but in the next couple of weeks, we will be doing this. I think on Tuesday at 2 is what we said. We'll shoot for 45 minutes because people's brains go dead after that. But 45 minutes or so, we'll just get in there. We'll talk through some things. They will have a chance to ask questions if they want, but they will be recorded so they can go back and watch it, or you can go back and watch it. And they will have some homework that's very set, concrete, doable. The main thing is doable. Our goal here is, again, studying for the ACT or the SAT is great, maybe, if you want to do that. But if you're going to overload me with so much information, I'm not going to study, and you've hit the resistance that we have inside, you're not getting anywhere. All right. So let's do something doable, because let me just tell you, if you hand your students this book and just say, here, go at it, or a lot of the coaching programs that are out there that are really trying to drill them through 90, to the score of 36 on the ACT, or very high into the 30s, they really give a lot of work. And again, you may have paid for a program and you may get your students to show up, but that doesn't mean they're going to do it. Okay, but that's all we wanted to cover today. We're sending these things out. We will shoot these to you in email also, and we are always wide open to answer questions. Send us an email at support@askdrcallahan.com. Of course, you can comment right here on the Facebook. But you do see we have in the comments below, we have both of these offers that will be focusing on these things probably a lot of the spring, because that's what our customers like yourself have told us. All right, we will end it from there, and we will be back with you next Thursday. We'll see you then.